Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Yusuf Olayinka Shogbeson. So today we'll be talking about sampling techniques in research. Just like we all know that sample is a subset of the population. Just in a case, in a research study, just because you can't have access to the whole population, so sample will now be a representative selection of the entire population. However, in trying to ensure that the sample is a representativeness of the population, there are certain techniques that one must use to select this sample. And this is what we refer to as sampling techniques. So when we say sampling techniques, there are two major sampling techniques. It is either it is probabilistic or probability sampling technique or non-probability sampling technique. So the probability sampling technique is the one that we now have the simple random sampling technique as example, systematic random sampling technique, stratified random sampling technique, as well as cluster sampling techniques. While the non-probability sampling methods or technique is the one we have the convenience sampling, the purposive sampling or judgmental sampling, the quota sampling, and the snowballing or the snowball sampling methods or technique. So when we say probability sampling technique, the word probability shows that every respondent in the study have equal chance of being selected. That is why we call it probability sampling methods or technique. When we say non-probability sampling, it implies that the selection of every respondent in this study is done haphazardly, given a particular criteria. Now, simple random sampling, just like the name implies, is a probability sampling method that follows simple rules of selection. When I say simple rules of selection, it is either through balloting or a situation whereby you are going to be selecting after some form of randomization that does not have any rule. So when I say some form of randomization that does not have any rule, it implies that you can decide to itemize all of them if they are known and then put them inside a particular basket, then pick at random. Simple. That's why they call it simple random. But the systematic random sampling technique is also a probability sampling method that has a specific systematic approach for selection. Out of 30, you might decide to systematically select every fifth. So it implies that if you are to select 6 out of 30 population size, then it implies that after arranging chronologically, either ascendingly or descendingly, you will then be selecting 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. That will make 6 that will form your sample size. The stratified random sampling is a sampling methodology that takes care of a particular characteristics of the population or of the sample that you want to select and select based on that characteristics, usually known as strata. So the strata is the basis for selection in a stratified random sampling technique. It can either be proportionate or disproportionate. So when I say strata, the strata is that grouping characteristics that is related to the sample that you want to select. So proportionately, it implies that you are going to be selecting those in that group based on equal percentages. While disproportionately, it implies that you are going to be selecting them based on different percentages. Then the cluster sampling. This constant sampling is also a probability sampling that first of all takes care of the natural cluster or arrangement before then selecting respondents in each of those identified cluster. So this cluster is a natural grouping of the population beforehand, and that implies that it is not the making of the researcher. So every effort to ensure that all clusters are captured will allow for equal chance of being selected. So the cluster will be the basis for selecting the respondent in a way to ensure that all of those clusters are represented in the sample used finally during the study. But when we now say the non-probability sampling technique, we give example of convenient sampling, purposive sampling, or judgmental sampling, snowballing or snowball sampling technique. So just like the name implies, convenient sampling. It implies that you are selecting the respondent or subject that are available, willing and able to participate in a particular study at a particular point in time, and they are also accessible. So when you get them and they make themselves available for the study, conveniently you then select them so far they are going to provide response, or they are going to be those that will ensure that the objective of the study are achieved. When we now say purposively, purposive sampling is a non-probability sampling method that allows you to select based on the specific characteristics of interest. So, and that is why they call it judgmental. As a researcher, you already have those that you are looking for, and that is what you will look for. Purposively, any other person that does not fit the criteria for selecting them will not be selected, even if they are willing. So that's the difference. Even if they will and they are able and they want to participate, so far they don't fit into the purpose that you intend to investigate, they will not fall under those that you will select. Then snowball sampling method is a non-probability sampling that takes care of referrals. The moment you are able to capture or identify one respondent, it is that respondent that will then refer you to somebody similar to him or her, if it is a human being, or somebody similar or something similar where you can also get the same response. So it is until when you now get the needed response that you will then have to stop, because snowballing, they will refer you to other persons and refer you to other person until you get the needed response. Thank you for listening.